And it is a little after 10. Everybody's got a really full day today, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. You've got an agenda in front of you. We've got one bill on the agenda today, Senate Bill 56. So I think we'll get our business taken care of in time for everybody to get to their 11 o'clock meetings with no problem. I would ask, would anybody like to volunteer to say open us in prayer? All right, Senator Hodges? 12, 11, okay, thank you.
Would you bow with me, please? Gracious God, thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed upon us, Lord, particularly the opportunity to be here today and attend to the affairs of the state in which we live, period. Please lead us and guide us in all we do. Grant us your wisdom to make better decisions. These things we ask in Christ's name, amen.
Thank you, Senator. Hope everyone had a good weekend. I will now call on Senator Anna Vittardi to present his bill, and we are working off of LC 394428, and that's in your folder.
Is this the right one?
Either one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Both
Okay.
hot.
Thank you for hearing me, and thanks for taking up all our requests to your office. We appreciate you and your team very much. Senate Bill 56 is a piece of legislation that we passed out of public safety last session. Also, we passed out of the Senate, I believe, almost unanimously. But basically, this bill came about because of a sheriff deputy who passed away during the pandemic in a line of duty situation that was diagnosed of COVID-19 and passed away due to COVID-19. What we found going through working with his family and the family attorney is that identification benefits to the family were denied, and we found that there were others potentially around the state that basically came across kind of the same situation, whether they were in law enforcement, maybe firefighters, etc. And this bill is supported by the Firefighters Association, and I just want to thank them for all their help. So as we worked through it, the bill was not taken up. I think it was on sine die. And so, number one, the bill didn't pass, and then I'm going to talk about the funding related to the bill, just so that's on the record, too. There were some federal funds that I think the state and DOS had, but because the bill didn't pass, those funds went back to the feds. So basically, this bill is just saying that if you, let me pull up which line it is. Which one? Yeah, I think that's it. Yes, sir. Thank you. That basically, if the public safety officer related to COVID-19 happened on or before April 15 or 2022, which I believe is the date of when the state of emergency came to an end, they would be eligible. And basically, this bill sets up a short, small window on August 1st of 2025. And let me find that I believe only goes for 30 days. I don't have it in front of me. The governor's office and I have talked about even reducing that to 2 weeks because the individuals who would be impacted by this, obviously they know who they are. Some of them have submitted claims. And so we're talking about roughly 29 families out of 68 indemnification claims that were received, 29 claims would cost around 4.4 million. And so I want to thank some of our colleagues. I want to thank the WHIP. I want to thank Chairman Albers publicly for all their help in, learning, understanding this. I want to thank Autumn Cole at DOAS for her assistance. But basically, that is a funding request that would go into the big budget that we're going to request this year to basically fund this legislation if it so does get through the Senate and the House. And I know Representative Gullett in the House is working with us to get this bill done. Again, we got it through last time, and it basically came 2 hours short. But that's what the bill does in a nutshell, and if y'all have more specific questions, I can answer those.
All right, Senator Harbin.
Just curious, am I making a correct assumption is that workers' compensation refused to cover these claims from that standpoint, and that's the reason that you're doing what you're doing right here?
No, I would say it maybe back a little bit differently. I think for some of these cases, the COVID-related illness was not considered, or was nebulous in terms of whether it was really, could be a factor in claiming it as a in-line of duty death. I mean, we have individuals, including this individual whose name is on the wall in Forsyth, and, being recognized as a fallen officer. And I think for us in the community and others, and I don't want to speak for the WHIP or even Chairman Albers, but I think we just have a concern and a problem that those deaths were treated differently, knowing that they were diagnosed. And in my friend and family from Polk County, he passed away in Northside Hospital. I mean, it was during the situation where, his wife couldn't even go and visit him, and we were sneaking chaplains into the facility just so he could have somebody to be by his bedside and pray with him. So, this is more about making sure that those folks who had a in line of duty death receive the benefits that I think are owed to the family under the circumstances.
But this is in addition to what would be paid under workers' compensation.
Yeah, this is, I believe,
In that
totally
respect,
separate.
This is in addition to what's statutory under workers' compensation.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you for the question.
Senator Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question, line 45 and 46, Senator. Payment shall be made to the surviving unremarried spouse and then the surviving children. If the spouse remarries, do the children still get paid?
I believe so. I don't know if, yeah,
Okay, just wanted to make sure that, okay. Thank you.
good question. Thanks for the assist there, Whip.
Senator Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is, are all of these death claims, or because there's language around line 60 through 65 about permanent disability?
So to my knowledge, the only claims or family members I have interacted with are related to death claims. I believe there may have been some disability claims, but I cannot speak to those. I can ask Mrs. Cole at DOAS for clarity if there were any or many, but the ones I know basically engaged with were only those that experienced a fatality. But I can ask Autumn that question.
So, a follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and to your question, it looks like to me lines 60 through 65 sort of answer your question. I don't think it's just death claims.
Correct. I'm just saying I'm not aware if there are other claims in the 29, beyond fatalities. What are those? I don't have those, like a subcategorization of what those are. But I'm sure the department has those.
And let me just, while I'm kind of have the floor, let me say, you mentioned in your testimony about the the window for filing these claims. I think that is answered on line 122.
Correct.
The bill, if it were to pass, it would go into effect July 1, because there's
Correct.
no effective date on Section 5. And so you'd have, the claims would have to be submitted from July 1 to August 1. And I think I would assume that the claims, that the reason we're, you know, there are known claims out there that have been denied. And I don't think the author anticipates new unknown claims being brought forward. It could happen, but the people that felt like they had a legitimate claim have already come forward and been denied, is my understanding. Is
That's
that
correct.
And furthermore, to the author, you have worked with the governor's office, is my understanding, closely on this, and the funding is, in your conversations with OPB, is still available. Is that your I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I
but-
wouldn't say it's still available, but we're gonna have to make it available in the big budget, for this to take effect. So there is a appropriations request, that's going to Chairman Tillery very soon for the big budget. And then my hope is our friends in the House will help us also with Representative Gullett.
But this bill won't be a surprise to the governor's office
correct.
or OPB.
That's correct.
Okay.
The agency and the governor's office is aware.
Thank you. Senator Cowser,
Number 4.
good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. If I could ask 2 questions, they're
Yes, sir.
same bill but different areas. On the annuity end of things, you're allowing the money to purchase an annuity rather than a lump sum. Why not just let the recipient make that decision themselves? If they want to take their lump sum payment and go buy an annuity, so be it. If they don't, they don't. Is there a sort of a rationale for that, or why you're trying to move this towards
Which-
an annuity?
Which line are you referencing?
Well, I was reading the bill
I'm
summary.
sorry.
But,
32, I believe.
32? Yeah, I don't,
yeah,
yeah, only commentary I could provide, there's, if this is something specific related to how the agency does it or something, I'm with you,
64.
Senator Cowser. I'm okay with flexibility.
I'm not necessarily against it, but the
Yeah.
caption to the bill says, Georgia State Indemnification Fund, Department of Administrative Services to purchase annuities for the payment of claims,
Yeah.
to authorize them, which made me think they
Line
weren't
64.
currently.
Well, let me see,
All right.
Senator Cowser, if you read line 55 through 57, I think line 64 is referring to back, because it's C1. See, line 60 through 65 is C1, so that's part of C. And it's just saying if the claimant elects an annuity, then the department should be authorized to purchase an annuity to fund the payments.
All right.
It's
So they
not
get to
forcing
elect.
them to do an annuity, it's their option, is the way I read it.
And the second question was, I guess the basis for this is you're presuming a public service officer that got COVID got it through the scope of their employment. Golly, there were so many causes of COVID, so many super spreader events. They could have gone to church on Sunday and then come to work on Monday, and we're just taking that leap of faith that any public service person that was hurt with
Well-
COVID, that it's on the job or job
No, that's a
related?
fair question. It's a good question. I can only speak for the case that, on the facts of what was presented in terms of Barry Henderson in Polk County, and I think his family and his legal counsel, Wright Gammon, would say that based on the timeline of where he was and everything, it was well on duty.
Did they present the claim and lose it then? They weren't able to
Yeah,
prove
so they
that?
appealed it, went through the, whatever you call the board at Department of Administrative Services, and the board denied their claim. And we have the records and all that. I can pull that if anybody wants to look at those.
You disagree with their
documentations.
opinion, and so you
I
want to
do.
make future claims, you don't have to prove it, you get it.
Correct. And this is only for this one window of folks. So
Right.
to the chairman's point, just to avoid, I think kind of a little bit where you're going, new claims or people coming forward that may say, well, that family member got it. And that's why we've written this bill so tight. And also too, we've not changed a single thing from last year to make sure that integrity of those pieces, to define what is in line of duty is intact. So the families that do and should get it, and the ones that maybe don't, they're not reaching kind of that threshold of kind of what you're asking about.
Yeah.
That's a very good, valid point.
All right, I got a lot of lights here. Senator Robertson.
Thank you, Chairman Advertardi. Chairman, isn't it true that there's a list of names that this piece of legislation impacts? Individuals who had filed claims?
Correct. The department would have a list of the families that they've engaged with on this topic.
Right. And to Senator Calzer's point, was the number one leading cause of death for law enforcement officers during 2020 and into 2019 was contracting the COVID virus while on the job. Is that not true?
I trust the gentleman's judgment, being a former law enforcement officer.
And when they went through the details of this, they did have to show some direct connection to the job in order to show where the individual may have gotten COVID. And is it not further true that at that time, if a law enforcement officer or if a firefighter or paramedic in Georgia tested positive to COVID, they were sent home and not allowed to participate in their job, correct?
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. And the only reason that we're addressing this bill today, is it not true that the bill was in the chamber to be voted on sine die? The federal funding was in place to cover the cost of this, and we in the Senate failed to move that bill forward. Therefore, the bill did not pass, and the federal funding was then clawed back, as all other federal funds related to that were clawed back. Therefore, that is why we now are required or obligated to fund this legislation.
Yes, sir, that's correct. We put our language on a House bill, and if it had been called up, basically the House would have agreed, and yes, the funding went away December of 2024. So this is doing our duty to make sure we're making, some would say whole, maybe making sure we're taking care of the families who've lost loved ones in the line of duty. Thank you, Mr. Whip.
Senator Kay.
Yeah, just if you could get me unconfused about the effective date. The section 4 says it's effective on approval by the governor. So that would be latest May something. So
Oh,
the
yeah,
window's
that's true.
actually
Good
8
catch.
to 10 weeks, depending on when he signs it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be accurate. I mean, I'm totally open if you want to amend, change it, to have a very small defined window. I will not speak for the governor's office, but I assume that they would be okay. And I think a smaller window, some may say a bigger window is better, but I actually think a smaller window is and more concise is better. Allows the department to prepare for this process. And I also think, again, these families, whether they've put in claims or whatever, they know who they are. So I'm open if, I'll let the committee, Mr. Chairman, y'all make that decision, but,
So would it make sense to you to change the effective date to July 1? That would leave the 4 weeks that you talked about.
yeah, I support that. I'm fine with that.
You want to offer that when, at the appropriate time, we'll consider it.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Harbison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, along the line of questioning from the senator from the 29th and Senator Cowden, what is that particular fund sort of is like a hazardous duty pay, and with the idea that this particular officer got it in the line of duty, as opposed to how do you determine that? I mean, how is, I think you alluded to it once, but I didn't quite get that. And I'm not opposed to the bill, I'm just trying to figure out how do you sort of peel back the onions on that to determine?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Dean. I mean, I can only speak for the family situation again in Polk County, but I mean, it was very meticulous, was very detailed, timing, you know, whereabouts of where this individual was, where were they performing duty, when did they go off duty. You know, I can't speak for every, you know, family member or their, you know, counsel as to, you know, how their situations played out, but I know in this case, I mean, it was very documented, of, you know, where the person traveled, where they were in their sheriff office vehicle, issued vehicle. All of those things I know were compiled and presented to the state.
And the fund, it will be funded initially by state funds.
Yeah, well, under the previous situation, that funding was tied up in ARPA money, if I recollect.
Previous, can you?
So before this year, the ARPA money basically expired in December of 2024. So
All right.
this indemnification claims could have been paid with ARPA money, but now that that money's gone away, we have to use state dollars to do
And
that.
this is in addition to any other insurance policies he may have. that
Yeah,
they
this
may
is,
have had.
yeah, I mean, whatever benefits, you know, each individual may or may not be eligible for, but this is just specifically for these indemnification claims
For COVID.
related
And
to
only for
COVID-19.
COVID.
Only COVID-19,
All
yes, Senator. And it states that in the bill.
Thank you.
You have, and just one more time, just to be clear, you know, diagnosed as of on or before April 15th of 2022, when the state of emergency ended. So that's to make it,
Okay.
make sure
I
we're,
get it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
So, you know, I guess one thing that made me co-sponsor this bill was that this is not, we're not setting a, exactly to me, setting a precedent. Already in the code, we cover strokes and heart attacks, and those are also hard to say with definity that it's tied to the work, you know. I mean, those would not be covered under workers' comp policy because they're considered natural diseases of life, but yet our state indemnification fund, the legislature has elected to cover those because if it happened within 24 hours of work, due to the strenuous nature of the job, we want to indemnify the family. So to me, this is somewhat along those same lines. So that I just want to point that out to the committee members, that lines, I guess that's lines 70 through 79, talk about the heart attack and stroke, et cetera. Senator Lucas.
The only thing I'd say about it would be up to the General Assembly, even if we pass this, to amend it. I remember back in the 70s, the indemnification law for law enforcement officers. And I had a guy that was a deputy sheriff that was working at the Department of Family and Children Service, and he got shot and was paralyzed from waist down. And we passed a bill on the floor of the House. My good friend Denmark Groover argued against it. And my good friend Tom Murphy went down and carried the argument, and we passed it. And that deputy sheriff was indemnified for that loss because he did not come under the years that they were talking about the indemnification. So if motion in order, I move do pass.
All right, we have a motion to pass. Do we have a second? Second by Senator Harbison. Any further discussion or amendments from the committee? All right, I'll recognize Senator Kirkpatrick.
So Legislative Council has just told me that if we deleted Section 4, then the bill would automatically become effective July 1. which would give that 4-week window that you're talking about, and that would require renumbering Section 5 to Section 4. So the amendment would be to delete Section 4 and renumber Section 5 as Section 4.
You want to make that in the form of a motion?
Yeah.
All right, we got a motion to delete Section 4 and renumber Section 5 to number 4. And we have a second. Any discussion on the amendment? All right, what's the will of the committee on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
No.
All right, so we got, you count them up, I don't know. One opposed and the rest for it. All right. Senator Lucas opposed it. All right. So now we're in a posture, I want to do this properly. So we've got a LC 394428 as amended, or do you do it as a committee sub? As amended. All right. What's the will of the committee on LC 394428 as amended? Motion to pass, Senator Robertson. A second, Senator Kirkpatrick. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? No. Okay. Thank you. Your bill passes. Good luck in rules.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any further business to come before us this morning? Seeing none, our next meeting will likely be Thursday, depending on what our load is on the floor. So just stay tuned. We'll get a notice out. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.